Steelers fans, no matter what John Gruden might say, Will Howard is likely not going to be the next Josh Allen in the National Football League. And no, he likely isn't going to be the next Big Ben Roethlisberger either. But does that mean that he has no chance of being the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers? For me, guys, I think he actually translates pretty well to one of Mike McCarthy's former quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, and if he can become that style of quarterback, he absolutely could become the next franchise quarterback of the black and gold. And today I'm going to be breaking down Will Howard's skill set, how it compares to Dak Prescott, why it does not compare to guys like Josh Allen and Big Ben Roethlisberger, and what are the chances that Will Howard becomes the next franchise guy here in the Steel City. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss a show with us here at Steelers Talk. Right now, the Steelers are still searching for their next offensive coordinator. Whenever we get that news, we will have breaking news coverage for you guys right here on the show. We're also going to have multiple live shows this week on the channel. We're going to have a bunch of great stuff coming up with the draft and free agency and all that great stuff. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join us for what's going to be a very exciting and very newsworthy offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So first, let's start our week here by talking about who Will Howard is as a quarterback, okay? And talk about what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, what does he bring to the table, what does he need to develop and improve upon if he's going to become a starting quarterback in this league. And the reality is, even though I would argue maybe they're not at the level of a Josh Allen or a Big Ben Roethlisberger, Will Howard does have some starter quality traits, which is why a lot of people like John Gruden and others have really touted Will Howard's potential and his upside, including our new head coach here in Pittsburgh, Mike McCarthy. I mean, he's got prototypical size, 6'4", 236 pounds. He's got good NFL arm strength. I wouldn't say it's like a bazooka like Josh Allen or anything like that, but certainly good enough. He's got clean upper body mechanics. He's got a good deep ball. He's also a plus athlete and rusher, and a lot of people think because he's got that size and he's a plus athlete that he's Josh Allen or something like that. I'm going to explain why that isn't the case here in a second, but he does have some power to him as well. At 236 pounds, he can move the pile forward. He has a photographic memory, according to John Gruden, and also he's a clutch performer. He played his best football in college when in the CFB playoffs there, and of course, led the Ohio State Buckeyes to a national title. But with all that said, with all those starter quality traits acknowledged, I do think Will Howard's upside does get exaggerated. I mean, when John Gruden, brings him into his QB school and says, "Why aren't you going number one overall? You're the next Josh Allen." I think that's, setting the expectations for Will Howard a little bit too high, in my opinion. And no, he's not going to be the next Josh Allen. He's not going to be the next Big Ben Roethlisberger, because even though he's got similar size to those guys, the reason why Will Howard is not going to be, the next superstar elite level quarterback that can make crazy plays out of structure is because he's not a very good out of structure playmaker. When he was at Ohio State, he was very much a pure pocket passer, and even when he rushes the football, it's not like he's Josh Allen where he's got that wiggle to him where he's going to be making people miss. It's like, no, he's a very straight line athlete where, if you forget about him, he can pick up 7-8 yards and, he can run over somebody if need be to pick up a first down, but he's not somebody that's going to be like a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen where they're going to be running around making people miss and is going to be a dynamic rusher of the football. And then when it comes to throwing the ball out of structure, he's not really that great at it either. He's more comfortable from within the pocket, and there's some other hurdles to his game that he's going to have to overcome in the National Football League if he's going to be a franchise caliber guy. He was very much a one-read style quarterback in Ohio State's college style offense. He's going to have to develop an ability to go, full field progression read, and he's going to have to really become one of the better mental processors in football if he's going to be a franchise caliber guy. Also, downfield accuracy. I would say that his accuracy was one of the biggest downsides to him as a prospect coming out of Ohio State. I mean, if you watched his workout during the NFL Combine last year in Indianapolis, there was no quarterback that was working out that day that was missing more passes than Will Howard. So the consistency with the stroke is certainly something that needs to improve at the pro level. And I think part of the reason why the accuracy is inconsistent is because of the footwork. He has his feet really close together. He doesn't really play with a great base usually, and he's going to have to work on that in the National Football League if he wants wants to develop and, really take advantage of a lot of the starter quality traits that he does possess. And frankly, the odds just aren't in Will Howard's favor as a sixth-round pick. I mean, the only sixth-round pick to ever win a Super Bowl is Tom Brady, and, there's just not a lot of quarterbacks that are taken in round 6 that get a lot of opportunities to prove themselves as franchise-caliber guys. You might get one, and you got to take advantage of that first opportunity and quickly, or else they're going to bring in somebody else to replace you. And really, as a sixth-round pick, the team doesn't really owe you any opportunities at all. So, Will's definitely going to have to, be the exception to the rule if he's going to be the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with that said, I still think he's got a chance. I think the big reason why he's got a chance is because he does have those starter quality tools, and now he's being paired up with Mike McCarthy, who is well known for his quarterback development skill set. And honestly, I think Will Howard's closest NFL comp to an NFL starting quarterback, Dak Prescott, is a perfect example of why Mike McCarthy could potentially turn Will Howard into the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What are the odds that Will Howard can develop into an NFL starter here in Pittsburgh? Put it on a scale of 0, meaning no chance, sixth-round pick. He doesn't have any shot to be a starter here in Pittsburgh, to 100%, meaning he's definitely going to be our guy of the future. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I tell you about our sponsor today, simply give me a number between 0 and 100 down there in the comments. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And the big game in Santa Clara between the Seahawks and Patriots this week is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. A new feature from Prize Picks that they now have that you can take advantage of is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So for my projection here for the big game in Santa Clara, I'm going to take the more on receiving yards for Cooper Rush, the less on receiving yards for Jackson Smith and Jigba, and the less on Ramondre Stevenson rushing yards. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, the way that I view Will Howard and his skill set, guys, is that he's a pure pocket passer with some athleticism and some power to his athleticism as well. And, that just so happens to be the exact way that I would describe Dak Prescott's skill set as an NFL quarterback. Dak is certainly a pocket quarterback first, but, he was known coming out of college for having that little bit of athleticism to him, very similar sizes as well. And, obviously, Will has a long way to go before he's Dak Prescott, okay? And honestly, Dak had a long way to go when he came into the league to get to where he is today, where he is a bona fide top 10 passer in the game that is absolutely surgical, one of the most nuanced and intelligent passers we've seen in the last 20 years in the National Football League. And he's had to overcome a lot since he entered the league. So I'm not sitting here saying, Will Howard's going to be as good as Dak Prescott is next season. I'm saying that if he can develop in the proper ways under Mike McCarthy, by the time, he gets to where Dak is in his career, where he's been in the league for quite a while, we could be looking at Will Howard as a similar caliber of quarterback. And, honestly, they're pretty similar in size. You look at these two guys. I mean, Will is 2 inches taller than Dak Prescott, which, if anything, is an advantage over Prescott. But they're both pretty, chunky guys at 235 plus pounds. So they can move the pile if needed, and they do have that athleticism at that size to be a little bit of a problem if the progression kind of breaks down and they have to be a playmaker with their legs outside of structure. Some other key similarities between these two guys is that they both have really high football character. People inside the Steelers locker room just rave about Will Howard as a person and about his work ethic, his willingness to stay after practice and get extra reps in, do all that different stuff to help him develop. Also, they have similar level arm talent. Dak certainly doesn't have the most dynamic arm talent in the world where he's throwing, sidearm passes or anything like that. A little bit of a quote-unquote robotic throwing motion, but he's really cultivated that to be one of the most accurate strokes in the National Football League. I could see Will Howard, doing something similar. Also, high mental capacity. We know Dak Prescott is one of the most nuanced passers in the National Football League, capable of going full field progression read, on every single snap in the drop back game. And then Will Howard apparently has that photographic memory. It seems like he's got a high mental capacity. So if he can develop, that ability to read defenses and, go through his progressions, I think he could get to that similar caliber of mental processing ability. And then also plus athleticism, like we talked about, at their size as well. So, is he going to be running all over the place and, throwing crazy sidearm passes from outside the pocket like Josh Allen and Big Ben Roethlisberger? No, but could he be Dak Prescott, where he could develop into somebody that could cut people apart from the pocket and then, make some people pay with his legs from time to time? I think that's a reasonable expectation for Will Howard, even as a sixth-round pick. And, I think people forget just how much Mike McCarthy developed Dak Prescott there in Dallas, because I keep hearing, McCarthy can't claim Dak as one of his, QB development people. But it's not like Prescott was like this amazing, top 10 level passer when Mike McCarthy showed up. I mean, before McCarthy, Dak was mostly seen as like a mid-level, kind of a middling, kind of limited, just okay NFL starting quarterback. Outside of his rookie season where they won 13 games, they won 10 games the following year, then 9, then 8 games, and they were kind of getting worse as Dak Prescott's career was moving forward, and as Ezekiel Elliott was getting older and was getting more injuries. Then after McCarthy shows up, of course he gets that horrifying leg injury his first year, but then what that opportunity really provided with him was an opportunity to cultivate his pre-snap processing and his mental approach to the game with Mike McCarthy. And Dak tells people all the time, man, how much Mike McCarthy meant to his development as a passer, and now he's one of the NFL's bona fide surgical passers in the game, akin to Joe Burrow and all the top guys in the league that throw with anticipation, that can just mentally pick apart a defense and know where to attack it. This is what Garrett, who reports on the Cowboys, says on what Dak says about McCarthy's role in his development. Dak said he felt like he really grew from setting the protection at the line of scrimmage, pass protection before the snap. Prescott felt like he really grew as a pre-snap quarterback with Mike McCarthy. Mike also gave him more control in terms of audibles and changing different things at the line of scrimmage. He felt like he really grew in the more cerebral elements of the game under McCarthy. And that's really what McCarthy's been known for throughout his career. He turned Aaron Rodgers into one of the most cerebral passers in the game as well. And then he did the same thing with Dak Prescott. And with a guy like Will Howard, who not only has some really nice physical tools, but apparently has that photographic memory, has that ability to retain information. I mean, I'm not going to say the sky is the limit, but top 10 quarterback level quarterback play and becoming a surgical passer like Dak Prescott, I believe is currently in the cards for a young quarterback like Will Howard, who is now going to have the opportunity to work under Mike McCarthy and probably get another year to sit and learn behind another cerebral passer here in Aaron Rodgers, who he, of course, learned from last year. And according to him, he picked up a number of tips and tricks from Rodgers in his first season with one of the top 5 passers in the history of the National Football League. And if he gets another year under Rodgers, and then you get the added benefit of being with McCarthy, who has just developed a lot of these quarterbacks into some of the smartest and most surgical passers in the game, there's certainly the potential for Will Howard to make the most of this opportunity. And by the time his chance comes up, he's going to be ready to light it up here in Pittsburgh. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that Will Howard is for sure going to work out. I'm not saying that Will Howard, is definitely the answer, that the Steelers shouldn't even consider drafting another quarterback or bringing in another long-term solution at the position. All right, I'm not saying that because, like I said earlier in the video, he is a 6th-round pick. The odds are not in his favor when you look at the history of the National Football League and QBs taking that late. But with that being said, I think he's in a pretty good spot to develop and cultivate his skill set, and I do think it is possible for him to develop into a starting caliber quarterback here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, who knows, maybe he could one day get to a point where Dak Prescott, another former day 3 draft pick, was able to develop into a top 10, NFL quarterback under Mike McCarthy. Is it completely crazy to think that Will Howard, who's a similar size to Dak, has a similar mental capacity to him, has a similar approach to the game, has a very similar athletic profile, could become a similar level passer with the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't think it's that crazy, guys, but let me know what you guys think. Down there in the comment section, is Will Howard the future at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section to finish up today's show. And that'll be it for our first Steelers Talk video of the day. We will be back with another video later today. Scott Tolzien of the Saints quarterbacks coach is in Pittsburgh today to interview for the offensive coordinator job. If he ends up getting hired, we will have a breaking news video for you guys on this channel. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.